it is a beautiful afternoon on March 25th of the year 2015. Sabrina Zertucci here, a resident writing consultant at the MFD Writing Center. I'm here today with Jason Martinez.
Hello.
Who's always with us. He's great to have around. We also have Director of the Academic Center for Excellence, Dr. Komara, here with us today.
Hi.
And a new ACE family member joining us, Mr. Tony Perez.
Hi there.
So we're going to ask Tony a couple of questions, about joining our group here and introduce maybe a couple of new fun services that are going to be available for students. Tony, so first up, let's start. What is exactly your position here at Our Lady of the Lake?
I was brought on to help the ACE Center with coordinating the Math Center. So my goal is to try to relieve the math faculty of some of the remediation they're doing in their classes and try to bridge the gap for the incoming freshman classes and take them from where they're starting with their math knowledge to get them where they need to be successful here at Our Lady of the Lake.
Awesome. So you mentioned Math Center, so that's going to be our new resource. It's here. The actual physical space is here, housed with the Writing Center with peer tutoring. Library first floor, if you didn't know, Academic Center for Excellence. Come on by. So what kind of services do you think Math Center is actually going to offer, and who can utilize it?
Sure. Thank you for asking that. The primary service we offer here is one-on-one tutoring. We've got peer tutors working for us right now, helping students in all of their different math classes. We also envision bringing on some professionals that can maybe put a different spin on the math tutoring process. That'll be the bread and butter of what we do. Some of the more exciting and fun activities that we'll do to help students learn math better are to have different workshops. In fact, we've got our first one ready to go for next week. But more importantly, during the summer, I see the Bridge program presenting math to students in a way, the way I like to describe it is to teach kids math in a fun way so that they don't really know they're learning math. And what I mean by that is we're going to launch water bottle rockets. We're going to be outside. We're going to send projectiles far. And the fuel for them is compressed air, just a hand pump, and water inside a bottle. And we're going to look at the math equations that govern something like that, something flying through the air, and look at how the math translates to the actual launching rockets.
Cool. Listeners, if you could have seen my face when he said water bottle rockets, it would have been epic. I've been excited about that since hearing about it.
Nice.
Okay. So what exactly would your role be with the Math Center?
The way I envision my role is to tie together the loose ends between the students, the faculty, and the staff here at Our Lady of the Lake. Students come to us with what they know about math, and sometimes that's more than enough, sometimes it's not quite enough. And so my goal and my role is to facilitate that process of getting students where they need to be so that they're successful in their math classes.
Okay, great. So this next question is going to sound a little bit like an interview question, which this is, but I'm going to ask it anyway. What brought you to OLLU? What did you see? Did you kind of was it fate speaking that, you know what, you're meant to be here?
It felt very much that way. And I can say I discovered the job posting one night when I was looking for work in the university environment. I'd been working at a university for a while, but the fulfillment factor that I'd been experiencing wasn't enough for me. I wanted more. And so I had been looking for work in a variety of different fields, but when I saw the application, or rather the posting, the vacancy announcement for this position, immediately it went through my mind. That is exactly what I want to do. I submitted threw my name in the hat 1 week, and then the following week I heard from Dr. Komara, and the week after that I got to talked to a lot of folks in a phone interview. The week after that, I got to meet a lot of folks here on campus with a face-to-face interview. I've applied for a lot of jobs along the way, and this one went very fast. In my experience, sometimes jobs can take weeks and weeks. And so you mentioned fate. It felt like I was guided along the whole way from the very beginning. And after meeting everybody here, face-to-face, I even left here just with great confidence that I was going to be part of the team. And when I heard from Dr. Komara, I was very happy to know that yeah, I made it. I made the cut.
Dr. Komara, anything on your end? Was it divine intervention? Was it, in the spirit of things, on a Catholic university? I'd like to think it was divine intervention. Anything?
It just clicked. I'm smiling a lot here because when I saw Tony's application, I was so excited because he has such a broad range of experience in his background that I knew he could build contexts for basic math stuff that would make it exciting, so it just it felt really positive from the get-go, and I think everybody around the table, when we were having the conversation, we were all smiling, so it was good.
Yeah, I was there.
Excellent.
If I may quickly interject, I'm not going to say too much because I'm recovering from an illness. The fact that your goal is to teach without the teaching, if you will, without kind of like the covert learning. When I was at my peak with math, and I have a very turbulent history with math.
Ditto.
I had a teacher my sophomore year who was very invested because it was a developmental algebra class, and that was the first time in high school because I barely got through algebra 1. The first part of the developmental algebra I got through with like a C, and when he taught this other class that I was in, I started getting A's. Wow. And it didn't feel like learning in a painful manner. It was very friendly. I looked forward to going to math, and I normally would dread it. So, it's good, I think, again, for me, speaking as somebody who I stay away from numbers as much as I can unless I'm balancing my checkbook. And even then, so...
That can be depressing.
Yeah. I do think that that's a good thing to bring to this community, this learning community, because I think so many students, regardless if they had good grades or not, there's still an element of phobia because now they're in a new environment. And especially with the freshman population kind of bridging the gap between high school and college. Now the mathematics, the expectations may not be as great. The gap may not be as great, but they may place expectations upon themselves. Like I'm in the big leagues now, so now I have to, start stressing when I start wanting to do homework and such. But so I'm very glad that you're part of the team and you're willing to create and foster an environment of actual inquiry learning without the fear of, now sit down, take notes, and don't ask any questions.
Okay.
Because
Flashbacks to
unfortunately,
math.
yeah, and unfortunately sometimes, and that was my unfortunate, after that teacher actually left the school I was at, and I was placed into another class, it very much was scary because it was, don't ask questions, we have to maintain a pace. And so I'm like, I have questions, like I don't know what we're doing. So I think for students who are in that kind of a place where they're not too sure about their skills, I think they're going to be pleasantly surprised, or at least it'll be pleasant for them to know the environment they're coming into, where they're going to want to learn fun.
That's great.
Well, this is one of the things that I actually thought was really great about Tony's background, in that he has a lot of science. It's rich in science, meteorology, all these things. And who is not going to respond? Even somebody who's not loving the idea of math is not going to respond to something being propelled through the air.
Yeah.
And if that, I would raise questions. How'd you do that?
Yeah.
And so I think having that inquiry sort of framed in an event makes it more exciting. And I think we too often in classrooms forget that. And not that I don't think people don't want to do it, but they do have expectations of covering X amount of material.
Right.
So we need support from others to take that material and put it into play somehow, and so we can have fun with it and learn at the same time and see how things overlap.
Yeah. And the vision I have that I've shared with Dr. Komara in the past to drive these programs and workshops is to think of Bill Nye the Science Guy meets The Price is Right. A game show type atmosphere, all about math and
Now
science.
that's a pretty high standard to meet, sir.
Do I get to build a wheel for that? I was just thinking.
Maybe
Okay.
we should. There's math in that.
There you go.
Yeah, I came from the background of, in grade school, the student left standing at the chalkboard because I didn't know how to answer the question.
Yeah.
And I couldn't go sit down. In high school, it was you should be able to know how to do this. And not very often did I get a response to when I said, I don't know how to do it though.
Mm-hmm.
So it's funny, that perfect segue into this next question, which is how can students confront their fear of math? I know there's probably not one particular answer, but what is a good way to start with that?
My first answer is to get a little help. One-on-one tutoring goes so far, and it really does make a difference, especially with repeat visits. It breaks the ice, it breaks the shell around the fear that a lot of us carry with math. And for me, I've tutored on and off for over 10 years. I have found that through that tutoring process, once you can help a student to know that they know what they're doing, then it's easy for them after that. And that's what I hope to achieve with every student that walks through the store. The big challenge that I see is just getting them to walk through that door. And
As with the challenge of anything we do here, especially,
Absolutely.
Peer tutoring, writing consulting, writing tutoring, everything, it's to get them to come. And
Yep.
this is a conversation we have amongst writing consultants a lot. And I think one of the big things to address in it is to let everybody know that it's okay to come get help.
Definitely.
There's nothing wrong with it. There's nothing, no one's gonna look at you and think you're inferior or judge you of any kind.
Absolutely.
If you need some help, good. The first step is acknowledging, I need a little help. Go.
Makes
If you
such a
can do
difference.
that, you're on a great step, and you're on a great path to hopefully turn things around.
I often tell students that just showing up is more than half of it. And if you just show up
Right.
and just be present, so much will come of that, just for showing up.
Right. Exactly. We see that a lot with writing.
Mm-hmm.
We see the same thing with writing. So, curiosity here. What excites you most about math? What is it about math? You're doing this. You're basing everything on this. What is it that is like? All right, math. Woo.
Yeah, it's that. It's math. It touches so many things. It's universal. I was trying to think earlier, what can't math or numbers describe? And I come up with nothing. I think no matter what, math is a useful tool. The repeatability of it, the way numbers work and interact, equations, and if you go deeper, calculus and derivatives and integrating things, you can describe so many systems and processes and actions and, you name it. I love that about math and numbers. It helps a lot that along the way I've gotten it. I get math. It makes sense to me. And the wide scope of what it can cover it just blows my mind. It touches so many areas of science, technology, you name it. Engineering, I've got a number of engineering books that describe so many different things that it blows my mind. And that's what I love about math.
I love to let listeners know about this. We asked Tony also to do a few written answers to some of these questions. And I love how this last sentence you have on here, for what excites you most about math. You put math can be used to describe and help us understand almost anything. Mm-hmm. Well, I'm going to touch that argument of math versus English and writing and say, guess what? Just like writing, it can be used to describe and help us understand things.
Math, I've found that math is a language.
It is.
Yeah,
And if you don't practice it, much like an oral language skill, you're going to lose it.
Absolutely.
And I remember taking a summer school course back in it was right before I went back to get my undergraduate, and it was at a community college, and I was struggling the whole summer, even when I was finally utilizing the tutoring services there. And I did it, I guess, at the right time, in the sense that I was able to get a high B for my final, but everything else was not salvageable. However, I told her we had to turn in a portfolio of all our homework and everything as a part of our grade, and I turned it into her, and right before we did our final, and we were allowed, of course, to bring a little 3x5 of equations and things, and I go, I've been away from this so long, it feels like math is a language and I just haven't practiced it. And she's like, if I could give you an A for just realizing that and vocalizing that, I would. But I can't do that. You have to show competency, but,
That reminds me of Sabrina's discussion about her high school experience of being stuck at the board And this idea of math as a language reminds me of a high school experience I had in algebra, where I felt like I couldn't ask the question, and I had a professor, or a teacher at that time, he was really professorial, that had a thing about, you know, you're being able to articulate the question, and when I couldn't articulate the question, and that's where I'm comfortable, language, right? He threw this piece of chalk at me, thankfully, being on the basketball team, I caught it, and he said, Komara, if you can't talk it, see if you can put it on the board. And I was mortified. But I went up there and I put it on the board because I had this sort of, in my head, this vision or whatever it was that I wanted to say, but I didn't know the language. And so in class, I at times didn't know what was going on if he referred to things that hadn't yet been put on the board because I was so focused on that. So it is both a language and a praxis. It's like, it is a bit of an art form when you have to draw these things out. But, you know, for me, sentence diagramming can be very artistic too. A sentence could look so lovely once you put it in a diagram and you see how all the pieces work together. But I have the language for that so many people don't.
Yep.
Likewise with math. I could write that math sentence or I could put that on the board, but I couldn't ask him the questions I had.
I can remember going through a book of, I think it was physics or something, and even though I didn't understand any of it, I thought that the view, what I could see of the equation, I found like a level of beauty within it. And because to me, I could understand that somebody understands that. The same way if someone were to give me a piece of the canon and I read through it and I would cry because I was moved, I could feel, I knew that somebody would look at this and be like, yes, this is the essence of the understandings of thermodynamics or something like that, you know. And I'm like, see, so somebody, this is a beautiful piece of art. So I could see the beauty of math and numbers and equations. I just wish I could always understand
it.
Yeah,
Right.
use them to their full
Well, it
potential.
gets back to what you were saying about having the language and practicing it. And if you aren't somebody who just has an aesthetic appreciation for the flow of a problem, putting it in a context with a narrative about a trajectory for a rocket seems much more exciting. So,
Yep. Plus you'll get a little wet in the process.
yes,
Yeah.
yes.
All I remember from that is my chemistry teacher or science teacher wouldn't let me handle the potato gun.
Well, we'll have one that you might be able to handle.
Oh, right.
As my high school teacher said then, just point away from the parking lot.
That's the idea, that's right. Point it away. Up
During
and
summer,
away.
there's few people on campus during summer. It'll be fine.
It's raining potato fries. 'Cause
Maybe during Club Rush we should, do something.
take a spud gun out.
Yeah.
Oh.
I know how to modify a marshmallow gun. Anyway,
Nonetheless.
that could be incriminating. Nonetheless. So we're kind of coming to my last question, and you've touched on it, Tony. But I answer this a lot in context with writing, and I'm kind of hoping you can give us an idea of why you believe math is important in life.
Yeah, you're right. I did touch on it a little bit in that it touches so much of what we do. To go beyond that, I really do believe, and in answering your question was the first time I think I've ever articulated it out loud. I really do believe math helps us to become deeper, better, more informed thinkers. And what I mean by that is if you can go through and do the math work, I think it exercises your mental muscles, and then you can then take that and then carry some bigger problems or seek out solutions to just deeper issues that maybe are affecting you in your life or maybe society as a whole. And while I don't think math is the only way to do that, I think it definitely offers that as one of its biggest strengths. And that's where I really push math understanding, not for math itself, but just to develop your brain to be able to have some deep thinking.
What's funny is that when you mentioned sentence diagramming, I remember last year, that was last year, playing the game of sentence diagramming with somebody, and as we broke down a sentence, I looked at it and I thought, it reminds me of factoring
Yeah.
Yeah,
from math class.
yeah, it does.
Yeah, and then I cringed and ran away.
I used to love factoring. That was the one thing I was good at in algebra. Was
All right.
factoring, so.
It's interesting, I think when you have time to think, you know, you go through school very often in a rush.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And you're taking all your classes, and maybe you're playing basketball or running or doing something else, you know, or caring for a whole family or working an outside job, and you don't always see the niceties of the links in critical thinking that you do between subjects. And the reality is they are all there. And once we think about how we're thinking about things in different classes, learning becomes more facile. It becomes easier because we recognize a process. So it's interesting to make these connections here. Maybe make people less afraid if they're in the liberal arts of approaching math, if they think about the critical tools they're using.
Yeah, I think if there was a greater bridge provided for those of us who are analytical in a qualitative sense, where we're able to put together, we're able to utilize different theoretical lenses when we read a text and put that together and express that versus somebody who can spend hours working a proof or, investigating number sequences or something, and let them know there's a connection there. So if you can do this, you can more than likely do this. It's
Yeah.
just a matter of mindset.
And they're so integrated. When we think about children, if a child's reading capacities aren't on mark, even if they were doing really well in math, their math capacities start to go down too, because they can't process larger pieces of information, a word problem or a concept that then can be written out in numbers. It becomes more difficult for them. So they are much more related. We see it very starkly in children, but it becomes a little shaded as we develop, I think.
I think we
I
put
don't know.
roadblocks between. Yeah, I think we see roadblocks.
We just asked about editing.
No, we're not.
No, we don't edit. We're all natural with this there.
I think, to kind of go upon that thing about, from childhood to adulthood, there's a lot of different roadblocks that we put in between that almost pure inquisitive state and learning how things work and making those connections on different levels, whether it's with numbers, space, or words and stuff like that we can put together. But, as we get older, we start to kind of see the world differently for whatever reason. And I think that's where also the relationships between learning and understanding kind of widen. So for more people, some may be more empirical, some people may be more metaphorical as to how they learn and apply these things. So I don't know, I'm excited to see what Tony can bring, what we will bring, to this learning space. So.
Well, to wrap up our afternoon podcast here, we want to thank you, Tony, Dr. Komara, Jason,
Thank you,
for
guys.
being here with us. And I always like to thank Jason because he edits everything.
Nice.
But, listeners, if you are interested in getting some help with math, then come across to Library 101, visit the new math center, and kind of put yourself on that path to math success.
I like it.
Yeah.
Path to math.
Puntastic. Have a good afternoon, everyone, and
Thanks.
we will see you. Check out our WordPress for the blog for this.